Welcome everyone, Happy New Year, January the 2nd. Many people are still on holiday, I think, but we are back. I've been on holiday and back from cold Montana, lots of snow, much of the US knows, a lot of snow over the US over the winter break. And I did something that I never thought I would ever do in my life, which was to go dog sledding, which was a very bizarre experience, but very good as well. So we're extremely excited. Paul joining me down in a very sunny, warm New Zealand on the other end of the scale. And Paul and I and the whole of the Purple Patch team are extremely excited for 2017. We have a lot planned. I outlined some of it in this week's Coaches Bulletin that will be coming to you. Although as it pertains to meetings with Matt, I do want to give you guys the verbal insight. We have a couple of really fun interviews coming up. In fact, two sets of two interviews coming up that I now have a commitment from. The first is two more interviews with Dr. Stacey Sims, who is now actually based down at a performance center in New Zealand. She is no longer up here in California. She's moved to New Zealand and working in a performance center. But Stacey's agreed to do a couple of discussions with me. The first around women and athletics, everything that pertains to women around nutrition, strength, and everything. Raw. It's going to pertain to all of that stuff. And then secondly, Stacey's going to do a general all-athlete discussion, which is really a refreshment of the discussion that Stacey and I had several years ago now, about 3 seasons ago, around nutrition and fueling. A lot of it has, of course, advanced on that end. And so I thought it'd be nice to have a refresher on that side of stuff. And then the second series of interviews that I have is with a guy called Dr. Chris Winter. And you may or may not heard of Dr. Chris Winter, but Chris is a super guy. He's one of the preeminent sleep experts in the country. He's got a book coming out called The Sleep Solution. He works with a lot of the wearable device technology companies looking to create lots of fancy algorithms around tracking and monitoring sleep, but more importantly works with a lot of the professional sports teams, with people like the basketball teams and the baseball teams, which of course have to travel a lot when they go on the road, several 100 days a year of travel. So his expertise is around time zone shift and performance, and has done a lot of work with Major League Baseball. And this is the type of person that I find really interesting, of how can you draw in someone like him with some of his insights, who works with a lot of executives or a lot of professional athletes. What can we glean from him and learn as it pertains to obviously one of the pillars of performance for me, which is sleep, and beyond the basic get your 8 hours a night, which we think is a lovely to create. I think Chris has got some wonderful insights. So he's going to do 2 discussions with me, one around traveling to the races and also traveling for business, because so many Purple Patch athletes have that challenge. How do you travel for business, both in time zone shift, but also retaining your current time zone? And then the second one is more around sleep and performance generally. So those are coming in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to, in likelihood, do those pre-recorded and send them out. But that's some fun, fast stuff to look for this year. Over the course of the coming weeks, we're going to discuss, Paul and I are going to discuss what is on our calendar, on our schedule of events. Now we transition into pre-season for the vast majority of athletes, a heavy dose of work that we're coming in. And in 2017, there's a shift in evolution in focus, I think, in methodology. And it still has certainly the heartbeat of Purple Patch. It still has everything that we believe to be true. But Paul and I have done a lot of introspection over what we did really well last year, and some of the elements that we feel like we can refine, improve, or add. And so the personality of this year's schedule, as I think happens every year, it's nothing revolutionary, but it's going to evolve a little bit and change a little bit. And so we're going to be going through the sessions, the meaning behind those sessions, how to be successful, and what we want to get out of postseason, and really ensure that you understand this is the mission. This is what we're looking to get through over the next 3 months for the majority of athletes. The good news is that no matter even if you're getting ready for an April Ironman, such as Ironman Texas, that several people are getting ready for, the initial block of work that we're all doing versus whether coming off the back end of the holidays or emerging and really starting to think about, goodness me, I've got an Ironman coming up soon. The personality of the work, the 99% of athletes are going to be doing in Purple Patch is very, very similar over the coming weeks. And so it's going to be really pertinent. I encourage you guys to either attend live or, of course, as most athletes get to do, review following at the to be newly launched education tab. And I would encourage you just to have a little peek at the education tab on the website. You'll see some things very much changing over there, and ensure that you're signed into the portal. Anything else you're excited about this year, Paul, apart from excellence, which is your favorite word?
No, I think it's, the discussion you're going to have today is important, because it's a good time to start putting aside the real world lessons. And I guess amongst other things is starting the season with some athletic and personal wisdom about how the training all fits together and what you get out of it, and starting to learn what you're good at, because these two really important things that's going to carry on through the whole season.
Yeah, I think so, and I guess it's a good segue into today's topic, which is, for lack of a better phrase, emerging from the holidays and into training. And I think what you said there is so important. I've had so many conversations actually over the holiday period around self-management, self-awareness, understanding yourself as an athlete, understanding what you're good at and what you need to evolve. And I thought that we'd start today with the two of us really setting the tone of emerging out of what for most people is maybe a time of slightly less training, a little bit more disruption in life, hopefully some rest and recuperation, the opportunity to sleep. But I would say that the vast majority of our athletes, as we start on January 2nd, and there's this natural human psychology of new year, new you, that is sort of, that all of us succumb to in some ways. I would say that the vast majority of our athletes are not in prime shape. And yet now is the time that most want to be in prime shape. So I think it's very important to establish the mindset as you emerge out of postseason, there starts to be this shift of mindset. And for the last couple of weeks, been probably disrupted for many people, probably with a few more pounds around the tummy if you're anything like me. But it's important to nail the mindset to start. And the first thing that I would say is I love the phrase actually, hurry slowly. It's something that Brett Sutton coined, which is really, the way that I always describe it is this concept of layering training. And as we come back and we do feel aspirational, we do feel the natural emergence of the new year, we do understand that we're not in prime shape. I think it's really important for our athletes not to be in a rush, not to panic and not to chase. And success for us, and I think from a mindset of 21 days or 3 weeks, 28 days, 4 weeks of work, we want to really embrace this concept of layering, of really putting together and executing work, but not be in a rush to get there. And I think one of the mistakes we see, Paul, is for athletes to try and shift into hard training mode too quickly. Would you say that that's one of the challenges that many of the athletes face?
Yeah, it's important to the longer you've been training, the quicker you'll get back into a routine and a rhythm. If you're relatively new to the training, it'll take you a little bit longer. You will have less, training experience, miles in the legs, if you like, accumulated, and it will take longer to refresh those things. Your strengths will always come back quicker. Your weaknesses will take longer. If you're not a good swimmer, which encompasses about 50% of athletes, then the thing that you'll realize that you've missed the most is consistency in the swim. It'll take you a while to get back there. But like you said, there's no need to rush it. It's in there. It's just a matter of going through the process to get it back. Your strengths will come back quickest. Your weaknesses and the things that you're not so naturally good at will take a little bit longer, but there's no need to panic. It will happen.
And I think that I would add to that as well. A second component that's really important is the thing that we always preach anyway, but it's worth bubbling it back to the surface, which is execute the purpose of the workout. So the mindset when you come, and the first thing that athletes always think about is the shape they were in as they finished their last race. And then they've potentially gone through a good and consistent amount of postseason work. But then the athlete that they see themselves with, that's what they want to get back to. And so the mindset is this of chasing. And I think that it's much more important to say, what is the intent of the workout? What are we being asked to do here? And over the coming weeks, we're going to really be going through each of those areas on swim, bike, and run, and realize that there's still a technical focus to the early part of preseason, as there is all season, but there's still this blend. There's not suddenly this shift of, okay, we're going to hard work. We want to retain the technical focus, and I would much rather athletes execute on the purpose rather than chasing the athlete that they were when they were last racing, and that's really important. So we get to this point of intensity, and as I say, most athletes are not hitting the same output as they were, probably not at the same body composition as they were. But if you execute against the intent of the workout and give yourself real leeway with the output, with the power, and what I'm going to do is I want to layer off, I want to execute with success, without failure. There shouldn't be workouts where you are failing through an interval, through any set of intervals. All I need to do is execute the complete workout with the intent of the workout, and then move on to the next one. And with that unshackles yourself from some of the preconceived notions of what power you should see, what pace you should see, because it's probably going to be lower than you would emotionally like. But if you're really pragmatic and logical, you realize, well, that's normal. As you say, Paul, your strengths are going to come back quicker. But I want to give you an example of a great workout around intent and execution. Because in this initial block of work, this is the type of work that I think almost every athlete, if not every purple patch athlete, will see. And that's on the bike ride, where we're going to be asking athletes to be doing moderately strong to strong work and playing with the cadence. And it's no surprise and no secret that we're playing with very low cadence and very high cadence. And I think in the early weeks of this training of pre-season, and as you emerge out of the holidays, we are always asking you to do this work at a level where there should be a disparity between in your heart rate or your breathing rate, which is associated with heart rate, from low cadence to high cadence. So if we were, for example, giving you 4 by 10 minutes, 4 minutes at a low cadence, at a moderately strong output, 1 minute at high cadence, 4 minutes back to low cadence, 1 minute high cadence. If your heart rate is high and remains high after the 1 minute and it never drops back down, it just stays pegged, you're not focusing against the intent of the workout. Instead, what you're doing is you're sitting at too high of a power and chasing that high power. And so it's better to back off and say the intent is strength endurance, which means controlled heart rate, with some stimulus of high cadence work in there. So I think it's really important to understand what the intent of the workout is. And if you don't understand that, of course, it's important to ask. Any thoughts on that point, Paulie?
Yeah, that flows into a thing that'll sort of start happening in the next few weeks. Is a lot of athletes will get their first functional threshold test, on the bicycle, and some other benchmark tests in swim and particularly. And it's that the intent of the workouts, with the strength endurance, the reminding the body of what resources are available, and also the fact that in those first tests people often, they'll show glimpses of really good output, but the thing that we see across the board is it's a long time since you did training. So that your FTP in middle of January or, you know, beginning of February is lower than it was in August last year, because it's probably since September, October that you did your last real intense race specific training. So it's natural that the ability to produce your best over a 20-minute effort, for instance, is not going to be there. But what people see is they should start seeing glimpses of being able to use those end of range bits of training to manage the current physical resource. So it's an interesting time of the year, and you don't really need to think too much about those numbers right up through that first set of benchmark testing. Just know that when we look at the numbers across the board of all the athletes, we consistently see a very similar trend as far as how the work progresses and how quickly people step up from that first benchmark test in whichever discipline to the second one, where fitness starts to build along with the building blocks resources that we've been working on up until now.
Yeah, and I would say, I mean, I think that the perspective is really good, and I remind athletes generally that, look, we've got 3 or 4 tough months of work ahead of us. Pre-season tends to be the first time that you're going to really start to accumulate some fatigue, which is the balance of good, high quality, focused training. And of course, after those 3 months, it's not going to get much easier from there. But I want to finish this by setting the mindset on 2 final things. The first is, let's make the first month of this block of pre-season that the umbrella of 90% of purple patch athletes are currently in. Let's month of this high value work. And what I mean by high value work is that, as I started, we want to layer the work on very patiently. But success of the first month is that we want to come out of it with 0 injuries. So that takes a really pragmatic and patient mindset, because we're just going to execute the works. We don't want to have a massive accumulation of global fatigue over January. So it's not to say that any sign of fatigue is something to run away from, because some of the sessions are demanding and are challenging, and we do start to layer more training on for most athletes. But we don't want to accumulate deep fatigue. And that means that you can be a bit more hesitant with the output and allow the progression of fitness to come from, here it again, the layering of many workouts and 3 or 4 weeks in a row of good work, rather than big hit it out of the park workouts. This doesn't, for the mission to be successful, a month of value work, for the mission to be successful, it doesn't need to be your best training output. You just need to execute it with a pragmatic mindset. And then the second final thing, just to give you a little bit of scope, because it is still ski season for many athletes. There is still the winter and the short nights. There is still, for most athletes, a long way from the prime races. And so let's just take a step back from post-season mindset, where I said you want to be well below whatever your capacity of weekly training is. You want to be well below in post-season. You want to have capacity to grow. In pre-season, there is a shift in mindset. We can't stay in that sort of off-season mode. We do need to start to progress toward, and that's important, progress toward structure across every workout. We do want to ramp the general load with care, as I just mentioned, hence the mission statement. But we still have capacity for some of the free training in there. And so I think cross-country skiing or Nordic skiing, it's a great supplement. I don't have any issues with it. A couple of my pro athletes utilize it throughout the winter. Jesse Thomas, Melindy Elmore utilize it. And I think it helps cycling, actually. It does help recruit that, and running to some degree. I'm fine still with some of the riding being mountain bike riding, as long as it's safe and you're staying upright. I still think that you can replace some of that stuff with those really fun, enjoyable elements. I still think there's the opportunity for you to go to ski week with your kids if that's one of the things that you do, and we integrate that week. But overall, we do want to start to have a bubbling up toward, not up to, but toward your training capacity, and a progression towards a real structure and specificity across nearly every workout that we're doing now. As a general note in this pre-season, and we're going to go into this into subsequent meetings, I want to give the opportunity for everyone to ask questions today. But you will note as you go through and you start to review the workouts, you're going to see actually more intensity this year than last year. We're going to have a real resilience and speed mindset over the course of the winter months. But whenever you do that, whenever you reintroduce an emphasis on speed and intensity at this time of the year, it really takes coach and athlete the real need to be vigilant on the progression. And that's why I wanted to have this meeting today, is to set the tone to say, yes, look, we are going to have more of those lovely Russian sprints that we have touched on in previous year. There are going to be more of those this year. There is going to be more power-based swimming than we've ever done before. We are going to have a greater capacity of high intensity work over the course of this pre-season than probably ever before. But I want to be very, very careful with it. And I want to make sure that we collectively as a group and individually manage ourselves so that it yields the intent and it doesn't yield injuries and deep fatigue. So we'll be going into that. As we progress. Let's stop there. Let's take a pause, because I hope that provides some mindset, an overall umbrella of mindset. But let's go into questions. And if anyone's coming out with pre-season questions or emerging out of holiday questions, do our little Hawaii sign, and we can start with that. If not, we'll just go down the line and ask questions as we go. Easy. I didn't think we'd have too many from there. Why don't we start with building up for a huge 2017 after the bad luck of 2016? Who could that be, Pam?
Let's see, am I off mute?
Mm-hmm. You are, my friend, you are. Do you have any global
I'm off mute.
There you
Okay.
go. You got
Okay.
it.
Yeah. So, yep, I'm ready to get back into it. I did have a little nasal surgery to hopefully help me breathe better. I did that on the 23rd of December, but I just decided to just do it and then be recovered from everything, and ready to get back to it. I ran the last couple of days, slogged. I called it slogged. I went really slowly because the doctor told me I wasn't supposed to run, but it was pretty slow. And then dropped a few of the pounds that I put on with my holiday indulgence. So I'm assuming that'll come off quickly. And then I'm looking forward to get back in the pool, which they told me to keep out of after this nasal stuff, just because apparently pools with all their chemicals aren't that clean as I thought. So yeah, I am
ready to
mentally
march.
ready.
What's
that?
Ready to march, seems.
Yeah.
Ready to.
Yeah. I want to feel like an athlete again.
Good. And any specific questions, or happy to participate or ask questions as we go?
Yeah, not right now, I don't think. I'm looking forward to hearing the video of the Dr. Chris Winter, is it? On sleep. So I am really eager to hear that when it happens.
Good stuff. Let's transition to Super Dave, if he has questions coming out and emerging towards an Ironman not too far away.
No, actually just a progress one. Remember I asked you before the holiday season about sinking legs during backstroke and kicking sessions. The legs are staying up. It just takes conditioning, unfortunately or fortunately. So
that was Dave asked me a question on email just before the holidays around leg sinking on backstroke. And Dave, I tried to email you a response to be clear, but I want to reiterate it for you, because other people might have the same challenge. But the first thing that often happens is one of the things in backstroke. One of the benefits of doing backstroke is that because your face is out of the water, it tends to be more intuitive for the athlete to actually find a natural sense of balance in the water. And when you flip a person upside down and do freestyle, they of course have to breathe. They have to turn their head to breathe, and that creates instability. And with their face in the water, it's not a natural environment for us swimmers. You can sit under the water and you can snorkel for as long as you want and not have to worry too much. But for a less experienced swimmer, it's not particularly pleasant to have your head underwater. And one of the natural reactions is athletes tend to sit with very tight legs. They hold very stiff legs, rigid legs, and that leads in freestyle to the legs to sink a little bit. When you flip an athlete on your back, it's more intuitive to find the natural position where your legs can float, which is ironically, David, I am going to come to your challenge. You had the challenge that your legs were sinking. So there's a couple of things. The first is you are spot on conditioning. You have to actually do it. But a part of that conditioning is actually, you, just from a neurological standpoint, you just finding, or a proprioceptive standpoint, you finding that natural balance. But I find also athletes, it's easier for athletes to naturally find a taut body and to actually let the water support them, the natural buoyancy qualities of the water on their back, because you're not having to rotate and turn or anything like that. If your legs are sinking, it's quite often that the one thing that happens, especially when you start to move the arms, is tucking the chin. You start to lift the head up and almost hold the whole shoulders really tight in backstroke. So you kick really fluid on the back in this lovely position, and then you start to do the swims and you effectively do this and hold up tightness. And of course, what happens is the legs sink. So if you're doing that, you really want to try and relax the neck, lie all the way back and just let the shoulders fall back in the water and the legs will float. The second thing that contributes to that as you're having that is, unlike freestyle, backstroke is quite a cyclical stroke. And the place where non-backstrokers lose their natural fluidity is at the hip. And so the thing that really was the aha moment for the swim squad is we had one of our swimmers, Laurence, who's an Olympic level swimmer, and I got them all out on the side and showed them her swimming backstroke. And the key place was not in hand entry. The hand entry does have to enter at or outside the line of the shoulder. The key component was if there is any pause, it's up here. But as you finish past the hip, the hand has to come straight out. There's no pause. So rather than swimming like this, which naturally happens with many athletes, it's much more like that. And there's no pause at the bottom of the stroke. So if you think about hand finishing past the hip and coming straight back up to the recovery phase, that tends to really help athletes. So those two things is not tucking the chin, hence leaving that, and then keeping the arms moving at the hips. The hips should be the start point and the end point of the stroke that's always fluid. And that really helps people intuitively get it very, very quickly. Nothing wrong with wearing fins. I would say almost universally now, the whole of our swim squad, and PJ's the only one of my swim squad members on the current call, almost universally everyone can swim backstroke very, very well now. And we have swimmers ranging from a minute per 100 or 105 per 100 send-offs down to a lane that's on about a 2 to 2 minute and 10 second per 100 send-off. So it's a pretty broad range of level over the course of the 5 lanes. Super David Swafford, Happy New Year, my friend. How are you doing? Any specific questions?
Happy New Year as well. I actually had another swimming question. I was doing the workout that was on my plan from yesterday, which was actually, the main set was 25 by 50s.
Yeah.
Where the 50s, every third was fast. So you specifically called out to only rest 5 seconds between each 50. What I was finding though is I needed almost 45 seconds after the fast one to be able to even have my breath back again. Does that come back with over time, or does that mean I'm just swimming too fast on the fast one?
Swimming too hard on the first one. So,
because they were in terms of time, the fast one was like, I was doing like 38 seconds on that and probably 45 seconds on the slower ones.
Yeah. So the set that you're doing there. Hello, Pinky. The set that you're doing there is part of the endurance tracker. And so come back to the top of the call, which you should go back and listen to a little bit. In this part of the training progression, what is the intent of that? So the overall intent of that session is, the name defines it, an endurance tracking or progression, okay? And so that is an endurance set. And the reason that we break down, rather than giving you 500s, I give you 25 times 50, is that I want the swimmer to be able to retain good form, to get the benefits of pushing off the wall with intent, with a good streamline, because that creates a taut vessel, and to be able to hold really good rhythm and tempo over the course of each 50. And so it's just an endurance driven stroke. Every few swims, I'll say, pick up the pace a little bit, like hit a bit more speed. But the only reason for that is it's not a 70% to 100% max effort. It's just pick up the effort a little bit faster, a little bit more intense.
Oh, so it's not like all out on the fast ones.
It's not a max effort by any stretch. No, it's just faster. So you go faster, and really what I want is a bit more intention with the purchase that you're creating with your nice tempo and rhythm. I want to have a bit more acceleration, a bit more tension under the water, and get that moving behind you, get to that feel, and then settle right back in. As we progress, we'll take the little fast bits out and have you just go pretty steady all the way through.
Okay.
And just hold really good rhythm, because that's the endurance. But it's way more beneficial. You will yield much more by doing 25 50s. Let's extract the fast part out. 25 50s with good tempo and rhythm, holding good form and technique all the way through that set that takes you, let's say, 25 minutes to do. Then it would be to go 500s that might take you 30 to 35 minutes, but you start the first 75 of the 500 with nice tempo and rhythm, and then you just move back to smooth, slow swimming that's more and more noodly. It's a less effective yield from it. And so it's a really sweet way, nice way to have the athlete go through a long period of time with good form and never having declining form. And so as a note to that, if you have for any reason missed the early phases of that, it might be worth pinging us at Plan Support and saying, should I take a step back? So with the athletes that are just starting now, that haven't gone through the last 4, 5, or 6 weeks of this sort of progression, it's not great to necessarily jump right into 24 100s or 18 100s, whatever the number is that I described to you that you get. It might be better to say, look, let's do it a ramp where we are hitting 50s where you can hold it, because we don't want form decline on those. That's the intent of the workout. It's a really good question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good stuff. Let's go to Marcus, who's already feeling a fitness in his bike climbing with improved heart rate versus watts, which is always good to see. Any specific questions, Captain Marcus? Uh-oh, your microphone is, you're not muted, but I can't hear you, mate. Try again. Try one more time. All right, now speak. No, I can't. We'll come back to you, Captain. Let's move to PJ while we can. I'll come back to you, sorry. Or you can type a question on the side.
So I'd like 2 questions. So since Arizona, I haven't really looked at the training plan. So this week is going to be like my first. Well, I've been working out, just not necessarily doing the intervals and, just taking a break. But so start the ramp towards like Oceanside and all that. But I'm doing the coast ride in a couple of weeks. So is that something that should be done just kind of like at a social pace, or should I get some work efforts in on those 3 days? Because it's a long 3 days. What's the best way to go about approaching the work?
It's great to go and do something like that. The coast ride here is a group of, there are several that happened around here, but effectively, for everyone else's benefit, is 3 days of riding from San Francisco to Santa Barbara. And so you ride down the coast through Big Sur. It's beautiful terrain and everything like that. PJ, it's very much the same of what I just described to Drew Scott, David Giardini, and Laura Siddall, who's down in New Zealand. And with the architecture of Paul, who was the driver behind this, but I thought it was a super idea. So I should give Paul the credit, really. I just said, yeah, that's a great idea, where they did 3 rides of very similar distance. And the prescription was, go ride your bikes, have fun, think about good form, no intervals. Because it's just a back-to-back-to-back of good work. If you want to run off the bike for 10 minutes, a couple of the days, you can. Outside of that, the terrain provides the work. The accumulation of the work provides the work. You should actually do it on a road bike.
Yeah.
Because you have that. You don't do it on a time trial bike, and just go have fun. It's super.
Okay. And then my next question is I was having that issue with my left arm in the swim. And I noticed that if I wear a snorkel, it seems to stay where everything's supposed to. But the minute I take the snorkel off, I feel that left hand sliding out. So for the beginning of like the preseason stuff, would it be better to just continue to use the snorkel almost all the time just to keep that form and rhythm going?
Yeah, and you're looking to burn the proprioceptive feedback where it becomes natural. PJ's tendency is to, if you imagine looking at me straight on swimming, he tends to come out like this with his arm, and I'm trying to get him to come like this with his arm. And a very common challenge, and of course that starts to create pain up here. And so, so if that tool creates habit formation, then when you finally take it off, you're not going to think about it. So it's accelerating the route. So I think that this first month, you can just leave it on there almost the whole time.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no problem with that at all. I think it's a smart thing to do, but very much so. Super Steve, how are you doing over there? You might have to unmute yourself, by the way. I muted you so that we didn't get any feedback on this thing. There you go.
I hope I'm coming through okay here. I just caught that this was happening on email. My only question is, are these held at a regular time, or because it seems like, is there a fixed schedule for these little sessions?
There is. There are 2 a week. And, you know, by telling you the schedule, it means that PJ is going to be able to always attend. And I've been trying to hide them from PJ for the last 2 years. But I'll tell you the real schedule, and then we'll try and uninvite PJ somehow. But so every Monday, without fail, is at 4 p.m. in San Francisco time, Pacific time. And then Thursday mornings at 9:30. In the morning, so that's all San Francisco Pacific Standard Time. So it's always 1 in the afternoon to try and help people with the East Coast, and then in the morning I do one for our European folks, and the afternoon also hits the Kiwis and the Australians as well. So we try and balance it out, and we're always looking to see whether that's the optimal time. So it may, if it changes, we'll certainly let you know. But yeah, that's always the same time for you, Steve. And at those times, you this is for everyone's benefit, Antonio. You can hop on live. We have up to 10 spots live, or you can sort of voyeur it if it's busy. And then afterwards, if you want to review these, because the first section of these is always a particular topic that Paul and I typically discuss. Paul is on his way back from his holiday, so he's lightly stopped off in the car to talk for the first half an hour, and I think he lost signal. But you can go and review those at the education tab of the website or the portal. You just click on it, and assuming you're signed in, you'll have access. Those non-Purple Patch athletes can see this content, they just can't access it, which is tempting for them, but they just can't get access.
Yeah. It's an enticement. Thank you. And it's good to be part of it.
Yeah, good to have you. Welcome aboard to Purple Patch. Cecilia, you've emerged from, if you can hear me, I'm not sure. Yeah, you're not frozen, you're there. You've emerged from your hamstring niggle. You're ready to take on the world. Any specific questions?
Yeah, that's feeling a lot better, so I'm excited about that. I have a question, two swimming questions. The one is really quick. Is the Purple Fast Fitness drill always with snorkel and fins?
It's a great question. It is not always with snorkel and fins. I would say that it is with the tools that the athlete gains the most valuable proprioceptive feedback. So if I've got a higher end swimmer, I'll have them do it without snorkel and without fins. To start with, as at the start of the season all through post-season, it is always with everyone. People that breathing is not a disruption, not a challenge for them, snorkel off. And for those that have good body position that can maintain momentum, because there is a rhythm to that drill, yeah, you want to have a little bit of propulsion. Otherwise, it's really hard if you're going from a sort of proverbial standing start. You can't create that connection. So if the fins allow you to have that, and it gives you the feedback, keep the fins on. So for the most part, I leave it up to the athlete. But I would say that 90% of the time at the Swim Squad in San Francisco, we do it with fins on, because it helps the athlete's eyes define the feeling and find the rhythm, which is the intent of it.
Okay. And the other question, similar problem to.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think we got a little choppy there. I have a similar problem to PJ with that. I just discovered it when you said that. That's exactly what's happening to my left arm too. I get sore. Get sore in the shoulder. I think because I splay out that arm too much, because I breathe to my right, and it feels better when I breathe to my left. So I think I'm kind of evening things out. But is there any other tips that maybe you told PJ already to how to, besides using the snorkel, to like really just focus on the train tracks, is what I've been trying to do to avoid that left shoulder problem coming back. And it's definitely under control. And if I bilateral breathe, that helps a lot. But is there any other tips to try to keep that under control?
Well, I'll certainly be looking at your swim when you come to camp, which is one good thing. But in that, as a general rule, shoulder pain is often accentuated by athletes entering with their thumb down. So one of the things that with swimmers that are not natural swimmers is they have this feeling that they need to place the hand in the water. And so when they swim, and if you watch non-swimmers, they're very deliberate with their hands. And actually, if you look at almost every real swimmer, the hand just either drops in very lazy or just slaps in. There is a misconception that placing the hand in the water is a positive thing. It's not. It just needs to fall in the water any old how. You're not going to gain the thing. But one of the things is, if your thumb is down when you're entering, that's going to create a little bit of tension in here, and as you then naturally push out, that's where the pain comes from. That's where the impingement comes from. And so, with that in mind, when you're pulling, as your hand actually creates the connection and you actually start the pull, the propulsion, your fingers, the end of your fingertips, your elbow will be facing the wall, but you're going to be pulling towards the midline a little bit. So you don't pull with your fingers facing straight down. Typically, you're going to be pulling with your fingers a little bit towards the midline, okay, as you pull back. That means the pressure is on this part of the hand. You want pressure on the whole part of the hand, but you don't want to be pulling out with your fingers or your tips towards the wall. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Very important.
Got it.
It's good. It's a good question. We're going to be doing another session on swimming and swimming form in the coming weeks as well. I can't remember what day it is, but we'll also get some film on you at the pro camp in Hawaii or whatever that island is called.
Great.
Now, Madame Pinky, are you there? Or are you hiding? Are you still there, or you just got your picture up?
Hey, I'm here.
Ecuador, how are we doing?
I'm doing good. Starting with the right foot in the new year. Hoping to improve my swimming and looking forward for all the races this year. Trying to keep up with the training.
How did you manage to navigate through the Christmas block?
It was okay. It was very busy business around. Christmas around here, but I was able to make some little changes according to the mood I was having. When I had more time, I was able to ride a little longer and enjoy the ride since we were in vacation.
Mhm.
And I think I enjoyed and I profit the time wisely.
And I think that you've been with me for long enough that you're smart enough to do that really well, especially as you go through that. So your challenge, your private challenge that I'll make public, is to arrive Hang on 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I have my. It's still school holidays, so we have my 4-year-old behind me. Your personal challenge is to get to San Francisco with a little bit of swim shape, a little bit of swim fitness.
No, I can hear you now.
Did I lose me? I said your personal challenge is to get to San Francisco with a little bit of swim fitness behind you. That's your challenge.
Yeah, I think I have to work on my swimming and get to San Francisco in February to keep up with the team.
It's the challenge because the swims are going to be brutal for you there. I promise you that.
Yeah.
So we're going to set up a one-to-one call this week. So I'll as we've got 5 minutes left, I'll go to Genevieve as possible. But we're going to have a one-to-one call this week. Genevieve has got no questions. Does anyone else have any other questions or specific questions? Hey, Genevieve.
I have a question about running on the treadmill versus outside. If nobody else does.
Go ahead.
If it's 30 degrees, as it often is here, should you run on the treadmill or run outside? I don't mind running outside in 30 degrees. It feels fine if I wear a hat and gloves. Is there physiologic?
The only thing you have to be careful of is, I think for general endurance runs, and if it's that New York crisp weather and it's freezing, but there's not ice and snow on the ground and the footing is good, there's nothing wrong with doing endurance runs outside in that temperature, and you just need to be dressed for success. If you're looking to do a really key session, the one thing that you start to worry about is inhaling the really cold air into the lungs. And that tends to be really challenging for athletes. I think if there's, I'd be in a different profession if I had proof between a direct correlation between that and athletes being susceptible to sickness. But it really does make athletes struggle. And cold weather, interestingly, if you put an athlete into a freezing cold race, it really takes a long time for them to recover from, much longer than from a hot race. Interestingly. So, and a couple of years ago, they had Alcatraz Triathlon, which is effectively an Olympic distance race in March, and it was freezing cold water, and it took people 2 or 3 weeks to recover from an Olympic distance race. Those are the races that are really cold. And the reason that I say that is you have to be dressed for success in the heat, in the cold weather when you're running. Endurance, not a problem, but I think it's hard to do really, really high intensity work. If you can have a controlled environment of the treadmill, it's good to do it. And there's lots of benefits from doing treadmill outside of the boredom factor. So, 90 minutes endurance inside on a treadmill, not very good. 40, 50, 60-minute session of high quality, controlled, really good.
Cool.
Good question. And I think one other person had one more question. If not,
I had.
who did? Was it Pam?
Yes.
Hey, sorry, Pam. You were frozen. So
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. So they just came out, although registration's a ways off, they just came out with the schedule for the Donner Lake Swim, which will be August 12th this year. And that is 1 week before Ironman Mont Tremblant, for which I'm signed up. So 2.7 miles. I'm thinking about trying 2.7 miles too much to swim open water the week before an Ironman in your
No, not at all. Not with your background, your training by then. I think it's great. I have a lot of athletes that are in Hawaii the week before Hawaii do the open water swim race the week before Hawaii, 2.4 miles. I think it's a good thing. I think it's a great last hit, a big confidence builder. And by the way, it's a really fun swim.
Yeah, it's actually the only event at which I've ever DNF'd, and I tried it about 3 years ago. I didn't wear a wetsuit, and I'm not sure what they think. I got a little hypothermic. I don't know, but at any rate, I kind of have I'm tempted to go back and finish it. So
I would go back and finish it.
Yeah,
I think it's a super edition, that type of stuff. Good fun.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks.
All right, guys. A good first session back. I'll say adieu and see the swimmers in the morning for San Francisco. We're back on track, and then Thursday morning we'll have another great discussion. Cheers, guys. Take care.